Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to explore one of the most fascinating and rapidly evolving fields in the social sciences, criminology. But not the old, traditional version of criminology that simply asked who commits crimes and why. No, today we are going to go far deeper than that, because criminology in the 21st century has opened entirely new dimensions, new doors, new ways of thinking about crime, criminals, victims, and the very society that produces all of them. And to truly understand this, we need to start from the very beginning and build our understanding layer by layer. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let us begin this journey together. For a very long time, criminology was a straightforward field. Scholars like Cesare Lombroso in the 19th century believed that criminals were biologically different from ordinary people, that you could look at the shape of a person's skull or the size of their jaw and determine whether they were destined for a life of crime. And while this theory, known as biological determinism, has been completely discredited and rejected, it is important that we mention it because it shows us where criminology started, which helps us appreciate just how far it has come in modern times. Then came the sociological revolution in criminology, and thinkers like Émile Durkheim introduced the idea of anomie, which is a French word meaning a state of normlessness, a condition in the society where the rules break down, where people no longer feel bound by social norms. And when this happens, crime naturally rises. For example, think about a country going through a sudden economic collapse, where overnight millions of people lose their jobs, their savings, their hope. In that environment of confusion and desperation, crime will almost certainly increase. And that is exactly what Durkheim's theory explains. But again, this was just one dimension of criminology, and the world has since moved far beyond it. Now let us talk about the new dimensions, the fresh, modern, and in many ways shocking directions that criminology has taken in the 21st century. And the very first of these new dimensions is what scholars call green criminology, or environmental criminology, which is the study of crimes committed against the environment itself, against nature, against ecosystems. So, for example, illegal logging in the Amazon rainforest, where criminal networks cut down millions of trees in protected areas, destroying habitats for thousands of species, is not just an environmental issue. It is a crime, and green criminologists study who commits these crimes, what motivates them, who suffers as a result, and how legal systems around the world can be strengthened to prosecute environmental offenders more effectively. This is a completely new dimension that criminology simply did not have 50 years ago, and it is extraordinarily important in today's world, where climate change and ecological destruction are among the most urgent threats facing humanity. The second new dimension is cyber criminology, and this is perhaps the dimension that touches the lives of ordinary people most directly in our modern era. Cyber criminology examines crimes that are committed using computers, the internet, and digital technology, and the examples here are everywhere around us. Phishing scams, where criminals send fake emails pretending to be your bank and trick you into giving away your passwords. Ransomware attacks, where hackers lock a hospital's entire computer system and demand millions of dollars to unlock it. Cyberbullying, where teenagers are targeted online in ways that cause severe psychological damage and, in tragic cases, lead to suicide. These are all forms of crime that require an entirely new criminological framework to understand, because the traditional criminological concepts of neighborhood, street, and physical space simply do not apply in the digital world, where a criminal sitting in one country can harm a victim in another country thousands of miles away without ever leaving their bedroom. The third new dimension is cultural criminology, which argues that we cannot truly understand crime without understanding the culture, the media, the emotions, and the meanings that surround it. For example, cultural criminologists point out that the way crime is portrayed in movies, television shows, and social media actually shapes how people think about crime, how they fear it, and even sometimes how they romanticize it. When a gangster film glorifies violence and shows a criminal living a lavish lifestyle, it sends a message to audiences, especially young and vulnerable ones. And cultural criminology studies exactly these kinds of relationships between popular culture and real-world criminal behavior, which is something that earlier criminologists never thought to examine. Then there is feminist criminology, a dimension that draws our attention to the fact that for most of history, criminology almost entirely ignored women. It did not study why women commit crimes, and more importantly, it largely ignored women as victims of crime, especially domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Feminist criminology changed all of that by putting women's experiences at the very center of the analysis, arguing that we cannot understand crime without understanding gender, power, and inequality. And this has led to enormous policy changes in countries around the world, including stronger laws against domestic violence and better support systems for survivors. Finally, the newest and perhaps the most controversial dimension emerging right now is algorithmic criminology, or predictive policing, where artificial intelligence systems are used to predict where crimes will happen and who might commit them before the crime even occurs. For example, some police departments in the United States have used AI systems that analyze historical crime data and generate risk scores for individuals, essentially telling police officers this person is statistically likely to commit a crime. And while the technology sounds impressive and even useful, criminologists are raising serious and urgent ethical questions about this practice, because these AI systems often reflect the biases that exist in historical data, which means they disproportionately flag Black and brown communities, poor neighborhoods, and marginalized groups, creating a dangerous cycle where over-policing of certain communities generates more arrests in those communities, which then feeds back into the data and makes the algorithm even more biased. And this is exactly the kind of problem that modern criminology is grappling with today, at the intersection of technology, law, race, justice, and ethics. So, as we have seen today, criminology is no longer a simple field. It has expanded into the environment, into cyberspace, into culture and media, into gender and power, and now into the world of algorithms and artificial intelligence. And what makes this so exciting and so important is that all of these new dimensions are not just academic theories. They're real issues affecting real people right now all around the world, which is why understanding criminology in its full modern depth is not just something for law students or police officers. It's something every informed citizen of the 21st century should care about deeply. And I hope that today's exploration has ignited that spark of curiosity in you, because this is just the beginning of the conversation. If you found this video valuable, please like, share, and subscribe, and drop a comment below telling me which new dimension of criminology surprised you the most. See you in the next one!